practice test and didn't score as well as I wanted. Any advice?
Yeah, man. Which practice test did you just take?
The USML or U World Sim Form 1.
Okay. UWSA1.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts during the exam? Were you missing stuff from fatigue? Were you missing stuff that you just weren't aware of the information?
I think it's stuff
Was
that
it
like I know what they're asking about, and then it's like, oh, what is that one tiny detail that I'm forgetting?
gotcha. Did you notice that there was a trend in your scores across the blocks? Did it go up? Did it go down?
I think it went up, but I'm not like I haven't looked back at my other stuff. I know that I'd have to look back at my other stuff.
No problem, man. So one of the things whenever you're going through these UWorld self-assessments is at least you can review it, which is a good thing. So you can go back through it, and I want you to make a mental checklist as you're reviewing this, and I want you to keep a tally. So get like a sticky note and put on it category 1, missed because I forgot. Category 2, I missed it because I did not read I missed this because I had no idea what was going on. And so when you go through and you analyze your exam, keep tallies and see which one of those categories has the most tallies. And that's going to be super useful for you because a lot of the time you may be going through the test and thinking that you're missing certain things that you got right and vice versa. But this will give us some definitive clarity on what's going on. If it's the small little details that you genuinely are missing and your category, that's all the stuff that you thought you were right on track and then you just could not connect the dots with the last point, then a really useful strategy for that is something like Anki.
Okay. And he says the three categories is forgot, read the question wrong, and no idea.
Problem that I see with a lot of students using Anki, however, is they use it to actually learn the material, which is where you go wrong. And so you can't really genuinely, truly learn information just from flashcards and understand the overarching concept. It's very, very difficult. Now, with that being said, some students can do it. But from what I've seen, the majority of students, they just get stuck in a trail of memorization rather than actually learning. And so I don't think you're at the phase where that if you use Anki, that would be a problem. I think right now you just need to probably hammer in those details so it would be useful for you. Does that make sense, man?
Yeah, no, definitely.
What would you say is the best strategy for questions that I feel like I
You still
misread
there, bro?
questions sometimes?
Can you hear us, Austin?
Hello?
It looks like you're muted, Kyle.
Can you hear me now?
Are either of you guys still there?
I'm here. Can you hear
I'm
us?
also here. I don't think he can hear us, but we can hear him.
Yeah, I think
If
that's
the
what's going
audio
on.
isn't working for you, feel free to drop a question or comment down in the chat.
Can you hear us?
Shoot, I'm not able to hear you guys. I see that you can hear me. I don't know why that I can't hear you back. Let's see here. Let's see if I can fix the audio. You guys still there? It looks like you're both muted.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
I'm not sure why I'm not able to hear you guys. I apologize. Let me try muting everybody and then re-inviting you.
Can you hear us?
Hey, try that now.
Can you hear me?
Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
But can Dr. Price hear us?
I don't think he can. I think
Sorry, I don't know why I
can
can't hear you guys. If you guys want to just drop your questions in the chat, I'll just fire off some responses that way. Just let me know if you can actually hear the responses. I think it's a technology issue on my end. Hey, are you guys still here? Sorry about that. I just logged out and logged back in. Let's see if I can hear you this time.
Yeah,
Ah,
I'm
there we
sure.
go.
I'm still here
Sorry
too.
about that, guys. It must have just been my phone being crazy. What's going on? Did you hear my answer about the reviewing the practice test earlier, Kyle?
Yeah, I got was it three categories? Forgot, read the question wrong, and no idea.
Yeah. So keep a tally of that. Shoot me a DM in Discord whenever you went through the test and let me know exactly kind of what your thought process was, and we can go from there.
Cool. Sounds good.
Awesome, man.
What do you think is the best way to approach questions, like reviewing questions, because I feel like I get a lot of questions wrong either because it's towards the end of the exam and I'm tired, or because I just didn't read the full question. So then I got the answer wrong.
I think a lot of it is going to just come down to being cognizant of where your flaws are with test taking. So for you right here, it sounds like some of the issue is misreading or not fully reading the question. Something that you can do whenever this comes up as an issue is number one, you can try highlighting key information in the question stem and then seeing if that slows you down a little bit. And then number two, to combat that slowdown of the highlighting, you can actually practice to not vocalize and sub vocalize while you're reading. So that means like you've probably seen people in the library that their lips are moving while they're actually reading a practice question. You want to not do that. I don't know if you personally do this or not, but it's the fastest way to increase your reading speed. Number three is when you're going through this, falling back on the strategy. So read the lead in, read the clue in, the last two sentences of the question stem. So that way that when you go through the answer choices, you have a little bit of direction to see exactly what it is that the question's asking. Because you could read a whole block of text and then you realize, oh shoot, this literally is just asking something very simple, like a mechanism of action. And so you don't have to waste all that time. And so you can use that time you save reading something else that's a little bit more complex on the exam. Because you're not going to only have first and second order questions. You're going to have tertiary and quaternary level questions. And so that's a easy way to save time for those questions.
Okay, cool. And what about like I get tired. I feel like my block scores get a little bit lower as I get through the exam. So like my last block is usually my worst block.
Okay, that's actually super important to know. And I'm glad that you shared that. So if that's the case, there's a few things that we can do. Number one is you have to realize, is this mental fatigue? Is this glycemic drop in your mental performance due to your nutrition? Is it due to a caffeine crash? What exactly is it that's slowing you down in your progress? And so there's a little experiment you can run on yourself over the next few days. Number one, you can change the timing of any caffeine that you have. So instead of pounding a coffee first thing in the morning, like a lot of people do, try timing that for at least 90 to 180 minutes after you wake up. See if that prevents that postprandial drop in your energy levels. Number two is you could try alternating between intermittent fasting and then also having a breakfast. So what, like Monday, you would do intermittent fasting, take your 2 blocks back to back and see how they go. Tuesday, you could try having a breakfast, something that's small, something that's high in protein, see how that goes. Take 2 blocks back to back, see if your energy still drops. So I recommend trying to augment your nutrition to see exactly what it is that's holding you back. For me personally, on test day, I had zero appetite. And I knew this about myself personally just from the years of studying and even back in the days of like piano performance and stuff. I get kind of like that feeling in my stomach that I do not have an appetite on big days. And so I knew that I was going to be taking my test fasted. So I studied fasted. And so you can kind of alternate those two options to see if that's going to help your energy levels from falling off. Another thing you can do is extra hydration, because a lot of the time I've noticed with students, and I read a study about this a while ago, that a 1% drop in hydration decreases your performance by 3%. And so if you're not quite as hydrated as you should be, then your brain is going to be wearing out a lot sooner and you're going to slow down your processing speed. So try fixing your nutrition, your diet, your hydration. Make sure you're getting enough sleep that's adequate, because I mean, at the end of the day, if you're studying for 8 to 12 hours and you only slept 6 hours, that just doesn't even compute. Like that math does not work. You need to be sleeping at least 7 to 9 hours whenever you're in dedicated board prep. And I know it's hard because you feel like you have so much to do, but honestly, it's probably the most crucial thing that you can actually do for your performance. So those are kind of the big things. Those are like, if we're looking at overall biomechanical, these are the topics that you can focus on. Now let's talk about in terms of the test itself. If you notice that your endurance is the biggest number one prohibiting factor and your scores are dropping off, kind of like how I mentioned to Kyle earlier, like were his scores dropping as he went through the UWorld self-assessment? The way to combat this is to practice like you play. So instead, if you're used to taking 1 block, then reviewing, or 2 blocks, then reviewing, slam all your blocks in a row. Take 4 at a time. Practice that for the next 4 days. So you would have taken essentially 16 blocks over 4 days. But more so than even the knowledge you gain from that, it gets your body used to sitting in the same spot and grinding through 4 blocks at a time. And so what I want you to think about is on test day, Are you going to take like one block, then take like an hour to review that block, then take another block, and then take another hour to review? No, of course not. You don't sit there and review your test on test day. So if this is a prohibiting factor, then combat it. You know what I mean? Just practice like you're going to play on test day.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll have to try the fasting and changing my breakfast time. I actually don't drink coffee, so that's not an issue.
You're a superhero. Awesome.
Not quite.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? I'm going to send out some invites to speak. So whoever has any questions, feel free to just pipe up and we'll each take a turn.
I have a different question
fire away.
regarding like fourth year audition rotations. So I have a couple of them set up, but I'm not sure how many is too many or too little.
Okay, solid question. And this is going to slightly vary for every specialty. So just for the sake of everybody listening, could you share some of your interests?
Surgery, probably, and I'm kind of considering IM, but I'm leaning surgery.
Okay, awesome. So the first thing you have to think of whenever you have the question, how many audition rotations should I do? Is you have to think of what is the objective of the audition rotation, right? So if your objective is to get a letter of recommendation and you have 0, then you need at least 3 or 4 auditions because you got to have 3 letters of rec to apply. So that's a bare minimum criteria. Generally, for specialties that are procedural, you want to have procedural letters of rec. And that doesn't mean that all of them have to be from a general surgeon. If you're applying general surgery, you could have a cardiothoracic surgeon, a plastic surgeon, a trauma surgeon, etc. But you have to have at least 3 letters of rec with a maximum of 4 to apply on ERAS. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is you have to consider, when I'm doing these audition rotations, how many can I fit in based upon my school schedule before interview season? Because you can do auditions during interview season, but it's going to be very difficult and you're going to be leaving the rotation, or at least you're going to not be at the rotation for certain periods of time because you're doing interviews. So like, for example, December, it's a really tough month to do audition rotations because you get a lot of interviews in December. So I actually scheduled my emergency medicine rotation during December because I knew that my rotation would allow us to pick the 14 shifts that we would want to work. And I just simply scheduled those 14 shifts outside of the days where I had interviews. And so that's one strategy that you can use. The last point that I want to make is there's really no downside to doing more audition rotations besides mental fatigue, because the more exposure that you get at a program or at numerous programs, the better the chances are that they will rank you if you perform very solid. Obviously, this doesn't hold true if you're not performing at the audition rotation. You get tired, you get lethargic, you get worn out because you've been on so many months of AIs. But if you are going to go in and work hard, most rotations are going to acknowledge that and rank you higher than somebody that they do not know whatsoever. And just from seeing this on the other side of things, from like the residency selection committee side, we will pick students that have a less optimized board score or research or whatever on their CV if we know that they are hard workers and it's somebody that somebody on the team has personally worked with. Because if that person vouches for you, that means a lot more than just reading a CV of somebody that you don't know. Because, I mean, you can put anything on your CV, and I'm not advocating for that at all. But a lot of people slightly exaggerate the amount of impact that their experiences and stuff like that. But if the person knows you, and let's say it's the PGY5 knows you and says that you grinded super hard on your rotation, obviously that's going to mean a lot to the program director when they're selecting residents. So that's the 3-part answer to your question.
Thank you.
Absolutely. What's up, Mike? How's it going, man? You there, Ashley? How's everything going, guys? I just sent you an invite to speak. What's going on, guys?
So I just saw this Twitter space. I just hopped in. So yeah, I haven't been following you guys before, but now I am. So I'm interested in getting in ophthalmology. I'm an international medical student, senior student in Jordan. My question is, would you think that if I did bad on my GPA in one of the years, and let's say I have really solid letters of recommendation from people like fairly known in the field, and I did my rotations, I did my research, so everything is top notch. My step 2 score is good. Let's say in that scenario, and I had a like a low GPA in one of the years or two of the years for some circumstances that happen, do you think that would smash my chances in getting matched? Thank you.
Good question, man. It will absolutely not smash your chances of getting matched because if you look at the NRMP match data from program directors, a lot of them do not heavily weight your GPA. And sure, some of them do, especially for some specialties. But at the end of the day, the thing that matters more is going to be your step two score. Because if your step two score shows, let's just say 260, we'll just pick a number, and your GPA was subpar, they're going to rely more on the actual data that's standardized rather than a class performance that could have been different for every school across the country and across the entire planet. Because let's say you get a 4.0 at one school, that could mean absolutely nothing compared to another school. There's just no way to comparatively analyze those two data points. And so most program directors that I've spoken to are going to rely much more heavily on a step two and allow that to overshadow subpar GPAs.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, hi, I have a question.
Hey, what's up, Ashley?
Not much, how about you?
I'm hanging in there, just getting some exercise outside.
Nice. So my question was, I basically started third year a couple weeks ago, so I'm a couple weeks into my OB-GYN rotation. And I just wanted to ask, like, what are the ways to make yourself just, I guess, stand out as a student? Because I feel like I'm struggling, like, am I supposed to be like extremely proactive and asking how I should help? Like, I'm not sure. I guess I'm still getting used to like the rotation environment and what I should be doing.
Phenomenal question. So there's a few things that you can do. Number one is obviously I'm gonna start off with some more basic advice and then we're gonna tailor it as we go. So the classic advice of get there early and stay late obviously upholds for any rotation of any specialty. So that's number one. Number two is if you're working with residents, see how that you can help the team because even just small comments from one resident to the attending and vice versa can make or break how the attending perceives you. Because especially for students rotating with residents, they might try and get as much face time with the attendings as possible, which is obviously good, but you don't want to neglect helping out the rest of the team while you're doing that. So little things such as helping prepare the list, meaning writing down labs for the residents, letting them know if somebody needs DVT prophylaxis, letting them know what somebody's intake and outputs were for the last 24 hours. Those types of things are really useful and they show that you're on top of it. The number one thing that anybody can do to excel on any rotation is going to be to take ownership of your patients. Meaning, if something's going on with your patients, you need to be the first person to know. If there's a lab abnormality, you need to be the first person to know. And this is something that has absolutely nothing to do with your level of training. It's just being proactive and being on top of the data for your patient. Like if you know your patient's going for, let's just say they have some GI bleeding and they're getting an EGD, you need to be the first person to realize that the EGD report is in and what it shows, and then pass that along to the rest of the team. And it's not like, oh, look at me, I get the information faster. It's not like that at all. It's literally just you caring so much about the patient that you can spread that knowledge and help their care be as facilitated as possible. So that's kind of some of the baseline tips. The next thing is you have to envision what you would want a student to do if you were a resident, which is hard when you're still in the process of being a student yourself. But would you want somebody that's kind of standoffish, somebody that isn't really chilling with the team, somebody that is asking what time that they can leave, if there's anything else they can do before they go home? Obviously, that's not something that a team player would do. And so you want to be the person that you wish was on your team. And that's kind of how I always tried to go through my rotations because a medical student can honestly make or break the flow of the team. Because if you're getting dressings ready, if you're helping with the patient getting to the restroom, you're helping the patient go about their daily tasks, their ADLs, you can make a huge difference in the care. You can be making sure that everybody's using incentive spirometry. You can be making sure that everybody's getting their antibiotics on time. Like whatever it is, you can do those little things and it will get noticed over time. Does that help?
Yes, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm like getting out of breath here. I'm walking up a big hill.
I have another question if you have some time for it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Fire away.
So maybe I'm talking about the San Francisco matching here, but you can answer me in general. How does a good recommendation letter looks like, and when do you decide whether to waive your rights to see it or not?
That's a solid question, and this will apply for both match processes. So whether it's for ophthalmology, whether it's for OBGYN, whatever it is, this advice will hold true. So first off, you want to waive your ability to view your letters of recommendation every single time. That's a no-brainer. You should not ever, quote unquote, not waive them, because that shows that you are concerned that the letter might say something that is not 100% supportive. And so you have pre-screened that letter before it has been uploaded. You don't want that. In fact, some program directors will not really seriously consider people that have not waived any of their letters, because it's like, well, what do you have to hide? If you couldn't find 3 people to write you a letter of rec that you knew without a doubt would be solid, then why on earth are you applying for the specialty? That's kind of their thought process.
Yeah, makes sense.
In terms of your other question of what would a strong letter of rec look like, I'll kind of just like construct one in my head right now, and you can take some bits and pieces from it. So it start off with saying, this student is bar none one of the most adept team members that I've had on my team in the last 25 years of being an attending. They were early every day. They worked like a machine. This person clearly cared for the residents as if they were a family member. They picked up the slack where it was needed for the team. They knew what was going on as soon as they stepped into the operating room. They clearly pre-read their anatomy. They were proactive with making sure that all the small details were taken care of for the patient's care, and they operated at or above the level of a first year or second year resident. If your letter says statements like that, it is golden.
I really appreciate the advice. I got it on record, so thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome, man. Happy to help. Does anybody else have any questions? Call it quits here then. Thank you guys for joining.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Absolutely, man.
Bye.